Greetings, friends. Kambria Evans here with the Zero Disturbance Podcast, and we are well on our way in our latest series, Why Women Go to Therapy. This has been so much fun to create this. I have so much to say about this. I love supporting women. I love supporting moms. I've learned so much personally in my clinical practice, just thematically, and it's just so wonderful to be able to share this with all of you because I really feel like this is the perfect time to empower women with what they need to fully actualize themselves in a really bizarre context. I've noticed that everyone lately in the world is just pretty much doing whatever they want and saying whatever they want. And I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, same. So I'm going to keep challenging myself in this series to become even more and more unfiltered because I believe this is such an important topic, especially now. So what are we talking about today? Today we're talking about women and parts work. Y'all, we have so many parts. We have so many parts. I mean, really all of us do, regardless of our gender identity or biology, but especially women have so many parts. And again, one of the most empowering things women can do is to know your parts. Okay, so we'll be talking about that today. If you haven't checked out our previous episodes, I would encourage you to do that. This whole series, Why Women Go to Therapy, is a conversation. So this is a really important part of that conversation. So what is parts work? What is a part? So clinically, if you're a therapist and you went to grad school and training and all that, you know that Fritz Perls was kind of the OG of parts work. Gestalt therapy was kind of popular in the 60s. It's where people would put a part of themselves in a chair next to them and have a conversation with that part. And why that's so important is there's a couple of reasons. First of all, we all have got parts of ourselves that we talk to every day, or we don't talk to every day. But if you think about the voices in your head as a place to start, you have lots of different messages in your head about what you're supposed to wear, what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to say to your kid. Like, there's so many different parts of us that are telling us what to do, and they have different volumes. Sometimes they whisper really compassionately. Sometimes they scream at us. And we also have parts of us in our bodies, right? I talked about this in a previous episode. We have so many parts of our bodies that communicate with us, right? When we don't like something, when we do like something. And those parts can get confused in translation because we've also been taught, many of us as women, that we are not supposed to tune in and listen to what our bodies like and don't like, where our bodies want to go back from and lean towards, right? So we have all these parts of us that are trying to talk to us, trying to talk to other parts of us. And we have a faulty translation system, which I talked about in the previous episode about Brainspotting and in the first episode about the blueprint for women in therapy. So what do we do with all that? What do we do with all that? First, I want to kind of give credit and honor our bodies and our systems because, you open up a refrigerator and there's different parts to it, right? There's like a filter, there's a coolant, like I'm making this up. I don't know about the details of this, but the refrigerator has different parts that do different things. And just like in our physical bodies, we have a liver that has a function, many functions. We have got a heart that pumps blood, right? We have skin that has a function. And just like our physical bodies have functions, right? All of your parts have a function. And guess what? As Dick Schwartz, the founder of Internal Family Systems, has taught us, there are no bad parts. There are literally no bad parts of us. Just like there's no bad parts of a refrigerator, there's no bad parts of your body, right? Your liver has a job, your heart has a job, your skin has a job. None of that is wrong or bad, okay? They're all doing a job. Now, what's so amazing about us as women and humans is that we have our physical bodies with parts doing things for us. And we have got a mechanism that we've developed over time through evolution that allows us to develop parts of self as we grow. How cool is that? Could you imagine a refrigerator being like, you know what? it's been 3 years. I should really grow and develop a whole new part of myself in response to the environment that I'm in so that I can function better. Like, just think for a moment how incredible that is, okay? So there's no bad parts. We all have parts of us. And we're amazing because we can grow new parts of self. And we all do this. We all grow parts of self as we get older. And the good news about that is that if we have a part of us that is good, that had a job to do and was developed, let's say at the age of 5, we know in EMDR therapy and Brainspotting therapy and most therapies, IFS therapy, that we can work with that part that was developed and modify it so that that part is more helpful and more successful and more integrated into what's happening now, right? Let's say that our refrigerator, because it's amazing, decided 3 years in, I'm going to develop a new part that, makes me shut off if no one uses me, but like keeps the freezer going, or some kind of like cooling structure that was smart. Because let's say we had rolling blackouts in California and it had to conserve energy, right? Let's say our fridge just developed that part. Now, let's say the rolling blackout stopped, but that refrigerator decided, I'm going to keep doing this. It's responding to a need for a function in a time that no longer exists. And this is exactly what our parts of self do for us. And that is literally why everything is so confusing, okay? Because we have parts that were developed at the ages of 0 to 5, which are very like nonverbal without context and harder to translate, or parts we developed in elementary school, parts we developed in middle school, right? That give us like a algorithm or instructions, okay? You might have a part of you that comes in and says, you have to be perfect or no one's going to love you. And maybe that was true and or felt true to you when you were starting second grade when you were 7. Maybe your 7-year-old brain, which was like, 15% developed at that point, decided that was true. And that was true at the time. And so you developed that part to make sure you were perfect in the second grade, right? So that you would have friends, because that's what your brain developed and decided. And that maybe worked for you in the second grade, right? But here we are in our 30s, 40s, and 50s as women, and this part that wants you to be perfect all the time is literally killing you. It's killing you. And your body's screaming at you. Your alarm system's going off. You have IBS, you're grinding your jaw, you're getting migraines, you're getting back pain, panic attacks, all the things. And what happens oftentimes for women especially is that we develop all these parts of self along the way. And there's so many that work against each other, right? Because we might have a younger part that thinks I have to be perfect, or a lot of us as girls were trained to caretake for everyone, right? Caretake for your siblings, caretake for your cousins, caretake. That also exhausts us and kills us later in life because that part doesn't know how to turn it off. That part doesn't understand that isn't appropriate, okay? So the confusion around this is so real. And what I want to say is that the solution is actually really, really simple. Like, we don't have to stress about this too much. Thank God. But what I'll say is that once we understand that we all have these parts of us and they all are good and they all have a job and that they all were developed at certain periods of time, our invitation as women is to really get to know ourselves, not just as we are now, but like what's going on inside of me, right? When I get really, really frustrated because I can't do everything this part's telling me I'm supposed to be able to do. Like I'm supposed to be able to be a mom and work full time and also be a good wife and also be a good friend and a good daughter. And it's like, that's a lot. That's a long list, okay? But somehow we have a part of us that thinks we're supposed to do that. And if we don't do it, we're bad, okay? Now, we're not born with that part, by the way. We don't have a part of us as women that's like, you know what? You're a woman, so you're going to be the caretaker of all the people and you're going to be the empathic one and you're just going to be the person that does all this stuff. That is not biologically what happens. What happens is we are socially programmed from birth to be like this, think like this, do like this, feel like this, okay? And so what does our system do? Because it's so powerful and brilliant, it internalizes messages from outside. Why does the system do that? The system internalizes messages from outside about who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be good and what we're responsible for, because biologically we are programmed to be part of the herd. And if we perceive that our herd status and connection is threatened, all the alarms are going off. So our system, which is so smart, is like, hold on. I'm getting this message over and over again from outside. I'm going to internalize that as part of myself. So I will tell myself to do those things so that I stay connected and safe and good. What a job to do that. And as women, we are so vulnerable and susceptible to taking in a lot of external messaging. So much so, and over so much time of our lives, that we get confused. And it is confusing, to be fair. We get confused about what is me and what is the message I've internalized that feels like a real part of me, like my voice, right? I had this epiphany the other day. I was so pissed. I was sitting with my friend, and we're both in our mid to late 40s. And I said to her, you know what I just figured out? I just realized I have been sucking in my own stomach since I was like 8. Why do you think that is? I was an athlete. I played field hockey. I ran track. I did half marathons. I was like incredibly, by standards, like thin and healthy and whatever. And even then, I'm sitting down, I'm sucking in my stomach. I'm walking around, I'm sucking in my stomach. Why am I doing that for decades? Because not just one time, not just 2 times, right? But over time, I got a message as a girl, as all girls and women do, that my body was not okay as it was, and my stomach was supposed to be flat all the time. All the time, because those are the pictures that I saw. Those are the commercials that I saw. Those are the movies that I saw. As girls, we reinforce this to each other. And you know what I said to my friend? I said, F this BS. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to let my stomach just exist. And it's going to be there and it's not going to be flat. Because I don't care. I have put so much energy into this. I have developed a part to monitor my own stomach flatness and then change my body to look a certain way for decades. And you know what I'm going to do? I am not going to allow my system to waste energy. I am giving this part of me a sabbatical because I am the CEO of my company. And I have all these workers working for me 24/7, all these parts working for me. They're all good. They all have a job to do. But guess what? I wrote that job description for this stomach position, this stomach monitoring job. I wrote that job description when I was probably like 6 or 7 years old. And as the CEO of my company, of my system, at almost 45 years old, I am not going to continue to sustain funding with my energy a position I created as a child. That doesn't make any sense, does it? And so realizing just the awareness, we haven't included any EMDR, any brain spotting, just the awareness that we're doing this is powerful, isn't it? Right? Because as an adult woman, I don't agree with this idea that my stomach should always be flat no matter what, sitting down, walking around after I've eaten, before I've eaten. What? Depending on what part of my cycle I'm in, I'm not participating in that anymore. So the part of me that had that job gets to go on sabbatical. And guess what my system gets? My system gets my energy back. My system gets my energy back to use for something that I consciously decide is actually important and helpful for me and helpful for my kids to see. I don't want my kids to see me with a flat stomach all the time. That's weird. That's very weird. This is an example, but we can all relate to something about our bodies in this way. And I think that the idea that we can develop new parts to help us and internalize parts from the outside makes sense. Like it makes sense from a survival of the species perspective. But what's so interesting to think about is what parts of us are from the outside and what parts of us are truly just who we are as like our self with a capital S, right? Our soul. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about since I filed for divorce and ended my marriage, just really getting clear on what I've internalized versus what is just me. And doing it parts inventory, right? Of here's the parts of me that have these job descriptions because they're all good and they all want to help me in their own way. Let me decide what parts need to be have a rewritten job description because the job description was written when I was 10. Put on sabbatical, whatever it is, right? Because the most responsible thing you can do as a woman at any age is to understand where your energy is going, if that makes any sense to you, and then call your energy back to you because you are the CEO of your system. You write the job descriptions. You've written all your job descriptions, by the way, right? Whether you are employed or not employed, you are the CEO of your company, of your system, and you have literally written every job description, even the internalized perpetrator energy. What do I mean by that? If we have a part of us that bullies us, that yells at us, that picks at us, that is a part that was developed at a certain age, that we developed to monitor ourselves to keep us safe from that happening too much from that part outside of us, typically with a caregiver, a boss, a teacher, a friend, a sibling, right? It is really powerful to notice that that part of me actually was a part I internalized to help me stay safe in that situation, right? Some of us have a part of us that doesn't want to speak up. As women, we're taught to be kind and agreeable and compliant and obedient and easygoing and flexible because we don't want to be angry. We don't want to be a bitch. We don't want to be these bad things that are difficult, right? Where did that messaging come from? We weren't born with it. We weren't born to be compliant and obedient and not speak up. And I'll tell you what's something really interesting. I have a program where I teach other therapists about clinical practice. I teach them about EMDR consultation clinically, and it's 8 months long, and I love it. We get to have a school year together, and I've done this now, I think, 4 or 5 times, and I have faculty, and it's amazing. And what's so interesting is that we had a workshop in our business building portion of the program, and we were talking about advertising and marketing and having a voice and saying something important. And guess what? All the women all noticed, I don't want to be seen on YouTube. I don't want to be heard on YouTube. That feels scary. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to say it wrong. I don't know if I'm smart enough. Where did every single woman who is highly educated, licensed therapist, I'm talking like years and years of experience, they're going on to be like EMDR consultants and teachers, like highly successful women from all over the country. Where did we all, having grown up in different places, learn the same thing about not wanting to be seen, not wanting to speak up? Where did we learn that from? We weren't born with it, right? As babies, that wasn't part of our biology, right? We were taught that. And here we all are in our 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s with the same internalized part that is scared. Something to think about, isn't it? I think another really cool thing about doing parts work for women is that we get to realize that we always have an observer part. We always have a part of us that's noticing us. And this is why I love EMDR, because EMDR is actually structured to do parts work. Like whether you formally use IFS or parts work with EMDR or not, you're always doing parts work with EMDR. And what I mean by that is if we have a part of us that has been through something traumatic, right? That memory network, that emotional experience of self has created a part stuck in time. So let's say that something traumatic happened to somebody when they were 9 years old, right? And when they get triggered, they get panicked by seeing, let's say, a blue car because of what happened, okay? All that is a part of them that was developed at the age of 9 in response to something traumatic. And that part decided something like this. That was really awful and scary. I don't want to feel that ever again. And so now my new part is developed to decide that if I see a blue car, I'm going to get really scared because I'm going to make an alarm system for the person that I'm helping, Kambria, right? I'm helping Kambria with my panic of a blue car. Maybe that made sense at 9 to make that part. Doesn't really help me now, right? So what's really cool is that we have an observer that can see this. Oh yeah, I do have these, quote, trauma symptoms, because really parts of me were developed in a scary time to have an alarm system. These are like my, alarm parts, right? They're protecting me from something bad happening. They're putting me on alert. Or maybe I have parts of me that if I talked too much as a kid, I got hit in the face. So I have parts of me that were like, shh, keep quiet. Don't speak up. Don't say anything. Maybe those parts are working really hard for me throughout my whole life because they don't want me to get hurt. Okay? But you are not those parts. That's not who you are. That is not yourself with a capital S. That's not your soul. That's not how you're born. Okay? And one of the coolest things about doing parts work and EMDR and Brainspotting with women especially is that when you scrape off all the gunk, when you notice like, oh, this is a part of me. This is a part of me. This is not who I am. I don't have anxiety. I don't have depression. I am not anxious. I am not depressed. I have a part of me that feels anxious when ... I have a part of me that learned that if I fall into a collapse of depression and hide in my bed for days and days, it's better than dealing with the thing. These are parts of you. That is why I have so many strong feelings about the DSM. I think the DSM is so unhelpful in helping us understand what we already know from EMDR and Brainspotting, what we already know from parts work. To have a diagnosis of anxiety or depression is so useless in the sense that it is incomplete. It is like step 1 of 20. Because then the question is, okay, you have a part of you that feels anxious. Where do you feel that in your body? Okay, let's understand and go towards that anxiety and towards that part to help it understand it's safe now, or be curious about what it needs and wants to feel soothed and responded to now. Or maybe that part of you needs to learn something in the present time that it didn't get to learn when you were 5. And this part was created, right? Could y'all imagine a world where women, instead of going to therapy and told you have anxiety, you have depression, we're just like, you know what, girl, you are cool AF. You're so awesome. And guess what? A part of you is scared. A part of you is anxious. And you've had this part since you were 5. And so this part has kind of like crept in and generalized into different content areas of your life. But the pervasiveness just indicates how young that part was created. That's all. Yeah. You don't have to go around thinking you have an anxiety disorder or depressive order or some kind of disorder, like something's wrong with you. Okay. Because you are not one person. You are many parts. Okay? You are many, many parts. It's really interesting. There's this diagnosis called dissociative identity disorder. It's what we used to call multiple personality disorder. And what this basically means is that your parts, which we all have, are so fragmented that one part doesn't know the other part exists. Which is why when people who have extreme fragmentation of parts don't know there is a self, an observer, like main part, they don't know that these other parts are coming in and out and that people are switching. But guess what? We're all doing that, but less intensely and less extremely. We all are switching into our parts and we don't even know that they're there. We don't know their job description. We don't know how that job got developed and when. And we don't understand that we are the CEO of our system and we can rewrite a job description. I can take my anxious part from when I was 5 years old and, let's say I didn't want to go in the pool, right? I can take that part's energy, which is so intense. I can rewrite the job description. That's like 1 or 2 EMDR sessions, you guys. Literally. If someone has a bullying part of them that's trying to keep them quiet and keep them, or like a lot of people who live here in Silicon Valley, they have a bullying part who will keep them working really hard. But it's like never enough because they're always going to feel bad about themselves. That's like 5 EMDR sessions. To clarify that the bully part was internalized, typically from a caregiver, and that the bully part has a relationship with me. And I now have the autonomy and authority to rearrange that system, right? It's the coolest thing. I mean, y'all have the coolest job. But what's important for me about sharing this with all of you is that I want you to understand what I see every single day in my practice. I want you to understand this and have access to this information. Because if anyone tells you, you're really bossy, or you're really cranky, I want you to remember something. A part of me is. And I'm really curious about why. And I'm curious about how I feel about that. Maybe I really like the part of me that's bossy. Maybe I think she's really assertive and helpful. And I'm going to keep her and I'm okay with it. I don't care if you don't like her, right? Maybe the part of me that's cranky is protecting me, because we know anger is protective, protecting me from someone's demands on my time, because they also have internalized the programming that as a woman, I'm supposed to do everything and regulate everybody and take care of everything. Not because biologically that makes sense, but just because someone decided that, right? The patriarchy. So the neutrality that comes with owning our parts changes the way we speak to other people and the choices that we make. Because if I know I have a part of me that was programmed to do something that's internalized in my head as my own voice, if I know that where that came from and that I don't agree with it at the age of 45, then if someone requests something of me, I can just say, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay. It's so neutral. And that also conserves our energy as women, right? Because if we are distracted by all of the noise and chatter and parts in us, telling us to suck in our stomachs, telling us to take care of everybody or do whatever the women are supposed to do, we can't actually be who we really are. We haven't even realized our potential, y'all. Like, this is why I think we're in a revolution right now in therapy and in society with women. We haven't even fully realized our potential. Okay? Yeah, we can make people. Have you ever thought about that? We can actually make a whole person in our body. But we have not yet realized the full potential of what we can do as women because we have been distracted intentionally by chatter that we have internalized as our own voice. I said what I said. I hope this conversation's been helpful. I hope it allows you to feel liberated as a woman to notice that you are not your part or your parts, and that you have got the power to come into yourself with a capital S and reorganize and rewrite the parts of you. And doing this with an EMDR therapist, Brainspotting therapist or coach, or an IFS therapist, or a somatic, body therapist sounds interesting to you. I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited to see you actually understand who you are. Because the reflection outside of us oftentimes as women is muddled or distorted, most of the time, actually. So with all that being said, I wish y'all a great, great summer, and I look forward to having lots more clinical conversations together on the Zero Disturbance Podcast. And in the meantime, be well.